Hi guys, my name is Doug. Welcome to Third Style Garage. This is the beginning of the series about the restoration of this 66 VW convertible named Hendrick. We're bringing it to the shop today for the first time. That's Dale. Say hi to Dale. Shop is over there, but we got it in the yard today. So we're gonna get started on the car this weekend. It's Labor Day weekend 2022, and Hendrick, the car, is behind me here. If you want to hear the backstory on this car, the walk around, why are we tearing apart a car that looks this beautiful, what needs to be done, what's our end game, this is the episode for you. If you just want to jump ahead and watch us start working on the car and learn about the how-to, the nuts and bolts of taking it apart and getting it ready for correcting the issues that it has, I completely absolve you of all guilt. You may jump to the next episode. Today's episode, this episode right now, we're gonna do a walk around with Dale and figure out why we're tearing into this car. And you can say hi to Beanie, who's the next door neighbor dog, who's over visiting and saying hi and checking out the car too. Thanks for being part of Third Style Garage. If you would do me a favor, leave a comment below, let us know what recommendations you have, what questions you have. If you're willing to hit the subscribe button too, that would be fantastic. Love it, guys. Thanks for being part of Third Style Garage. Have a great day. All right, Dale, so introduce us to Hendrick. Tell us a little bit about the history of the car, and what led you to this particular car, but also maybe what led you to a Beetle, and why 66, why convertible? Yeah, what's the draw for you?
You bet. So I've always loved Beetles since I was a little kid. My brother had a 63. I didn't know that at the time, but now I know that, and I just thought it was a fun car, and I still get that with kids love this car. It's a fun shape, it's a fun sound, all of that. And so I knew I wanted a Beetle. My very first car was a 72 Beetle, baby blue, probably a Bahama blue is what they called it. And I always knew I wanted another one, and a convertible just would add to it all. And I got in a spot in 2013 where I had the money to do it, and so that's a real gift. And I really didn't care. I knew I wanted the bumpers, these towel rack bumpers, these 60s bumpers, and then looking at the colors, I thought I really liked this particular blue, which is a 3-year only color. It was 64, 5, and 6 that they had sea blue. And
Beanie wants to play. Sorry about that. She wants me to chase her around the yard. Keep going, sorry.
So no, and so I really love that sea blue color with a gray interior. And I ended up connecting with somebody that literally lived down the road for me. I didn't know he was even into Beetles, and he had a Java green convertible. And when I told him I wanted a sea blue, he said, "I know a guy who was thinking of selling, and he's got a really nice driver." And so that ended up being this car, and you know, a few months later it was mine, but it had a black interior, and I always kind of liked the gray interior, and yeah, the black interior was fairly new. It was a TMI interior, which is great stuff, but it isn't going to last forever. And now, you know, that was in 2013, and so you know, it's been a number of years. I've been saving my pennies and learning about the car. I really didn't know anything in the beginning. I'm not a mechanic. I didn't grow up in a car family, but over time I've learned about it. I've really enjoyed doing that. I'm a science teacher, so I love how things work. And this car is simple enough. I talked to my brother, the one who had the 63, and I'm like, "Do you think I can learn about this car? Can I do this?" And he told me, "Dale, these cars are really glorified go-karts. You can totally learn how to do this." And he is a mechanic. He's very mechanical, and it works on his own cars, all that kind of stuff that I felt like I wasn't. But it's been really fun to get to know this car. But over time, as I've gotten to know it, I also see the ways that it can be improved. And so one of the first things I did just this past summer is I bought a new interior set. And so I redid the seats. So those are all brand new instead of the black TMI. This is a brand new interior that is made according to a 1 year only 66 style. These would have been heat seamed. These are stitched here, made by West Coast Classic Interiors. And they did a great job. I really appreciate what they did. I don't have my panels yet. And so that'll be exciting when that all comes in. I'm going to go with a two-tone panel, which technically isn't a 66, but I like the look of it. And then I put in a new steering wheel here. 66 was the first year they had a black steering wheel. And I still have that original one, but I bought a new steering wheel from Flat 4. And again, I just kind of like some of the early 60s things, but what I found was a 66. And so that's what I've got going on. And again, from West Coast Classic Interiors, I got a new carpet kit. And most people are like, oh, you got a nice carpet. Well, yeah, it's a decent carpet, but there's a lot of fraying in here and the edges just aren't quite as nice. And the West Coast Classic Interior, it's just got really good edging and it's gonna fit well. There's a lot of wrinkles and stuff in this. And so, again, everything can be improved. And I really want to do that. And the next step is gonna require body work. And that's where watching Doug, you work on the Mustang, and we've spent a couple of years talking about what this might be, and now the day is here. To tear it apart and do the body work so that I can get a better paint job. It's a fine paint job from a distance, but again, all the little things that I've learned over the last 8 years that it has incorrect on it or fudged on it, if you will. I want to fix that and then get a real quality paint job onto it and really take it from a great daily driver and turn it into a show car.
Let's see, how do I want to do this? All right, so Dale, let's talk about why we're diving into the car as deep as we are. It's a gorgeous daily driver. I've had some cars that I'd say are 20 footers. They look good from 20 feet, and this is almost a 5 footer. But yet we're going to tear it down to the body. Give us a rundown as to why. I know you're heading for a show car. I know there's some issues with the front clip and the front end. What are some of the other issues that you hope to correct and maybe change? We talked a little about the interior. There's a gorgeous interior seat set for it, and the inside will be beautiful. But talk about why we're doing, what are we hoping to correct, and what are we trying to do?
Yeah, some of the biggest pieces are that front and rear clip. In the front of the car, a lot of Beetles at some point in their life, they were hit from the front or behind, and this one's both. When I first bought this car, this part of the blade was actually hitting the scraping on the fender and has worn away all the paint there. And I discovered that when I started going into these, the overrider supports, and I wanted to paint those, and I wanted to paint inside the blade here because it was all rusted out. And in doing that, I had to take the bumper the bumper off. And when I did that, what I discovered is none of the bumper brackets are being used the way they're supposed to. Some of these overrider supports aren't even bolted in, they're just shoved through that hole. And it's all because this front clip is not in the right spot. The whole thing points too far down, so the blade's in the wrong spot, and we end up with fenders that don't match up.
So the fender here is sticking out proud compared to the front clip.
Mm-hmm.
And we think the fender is probably correct. There are a bunch of other things that point to the front clip, including these override braces. Dale, you've also pointed out before at this massive gap between the hood and the front clip, that the curve of the hood matches the curve of the front to about in there somewhere. And then all of a sudden it grows wildly. So the hood actually kind of matches the curve of the fender, not necessarily the front clip. There's also some evidence inside the trunk though. What are some of the things you've seen here?
Yeah, so this is, you may have to pause it a little because I can't, it takes a bit to get the spare tire ought to come out, but it's
That's
really
generally
jammed.
helpful.
It's jammed in there, and I think it has like 10 pounds of pressure in it right now. So let me pull this out a second. And you know, I know it's always tight in here. There are people who for their spare tires they use 155s, and these are 165s, I guess. So it's the size of the rest of the tires, but some people put in smaller ones.
Dale, these look like the original bias ply tires, but they're not, are they?
No, not at all. In fact, so these tires came from Diamondback, and they are radial tires. And but these particular this Auburn is made with the pie crust stuff up here and made to look like a bias ply tire, which would have been on it originally in the 60s, of course. And I decided to go just all black wall for the spare just to save some money, because the white walls are not cheap, but I really wanted that look.
This is also one of your original rims, which has the, what are they called, vented holes?
Slots.
Slots.
Yep, it's a slotted. This is the first year, 66 was the first year they put in slots to increase the airflow. And so there's no clips for the dog dish hubcaps. It would have had flat hubcaps. That's actually just a 2-year only, 66 and 67. And it would have been held by these little nubs. So that is an original one. I had it painted the same color. But what I got from the Merriman Beetle, which is our parts Beetle, our measurement Beetle, that's an older one.
I can see myself. Hi.
There you go. But that has the smoothie rims, and I really like that. Again, that was something else that's like an earlier 60s Beetle. So it's a 66 with several things that are like an earlier 60s, and I like that dog dish hubcap and the smoothie rims. And then I bought the trim rings as well. Yep, these beauty rings. And then I wanted the wide white walls. Again, more of a early 60s, late 50s kind of look to it.
Sure.
With that,
again, Auburn
with that
radials with a pie crust.
Yep.
All right, back to the trunk. Okay. So we're thinking that the front's back a little bit further, or tilted down, or rotated.
Oh, totally. And if you look at it, of course, the gas tank should be sitting on top of this piece here, and there's an inch gap there. So that's a sign. And then because the whole thing is pointed down, the steering box, it doesn't, this is supposed to be like an inspection hole, but the steering box itself is running into that piece. So they cut this front piece so that the steering box would fit in it.
So it's supposed to be a hole?
Yeah, so
and
that's,
they cut the bottom of the hole out.
Correct. And we'll be able to see that on the Merriman Beetle, how that inspection plate is supposed to go. If you look, this hole here, this is it's supposed to have something in that space, a cover kind of a deal, which I don't have, but that's so that you can pull your shift rod out when you want to change your the shift rod bushing, which I definitely want to do, but it has to come literally through the front of the car. But because of the clip, you can't get it out that way because you can't.
Sorry, I'm trying to find it through there. I can't see it, but my bad.
So you know, this hole is supposed to line up with another hole that's in the front clip here, but it doesn't line up. This and this won't line all up. You know, so you can't actually change the shift rod bushing the way you're supposed to here because of that tilt.
So it kind of seems like the front's rotated down.
Yes.
That way.
And
which would pull this away.
Now you can see where, you know, this support, it's not even, it's supposed to be bolted on here, but it's not even close.
Got it.
And then these bumper brackets, again, when we take it off, we'd be able to see they have been drilled through in different spots to get that whole thing to the blade of the bumper to be horizontal. Otherwise it'd be pointing at the ground.
Got it.
And I think probably what happened is somebody bought a new front clip, a repo front clip, and they decided to use the whole thing instead of just cutting the part they needed to. And when they did it, you know, they ended up welding it all up and it was too low, and then everything else becomes adjustments as they, you know, because of that.
So it'll be our job to figure out where is it right, where is it wrong, find that line in the middle, and then fix it from there.
And I don't know, somebody could comment on this, that'd be great, but I've been told that if the difference between the horn hole and this seam, if you have a 2-finger, it's probably, or you know, or even less, like a 1-finger here, that's probably an original fender, as opposed to over here on the other side, you can see that it's wider.
Oh, interesting.
And so that the repo ones are farther over. So this might be reproduction, who knows when, maybe 90s, maybe, you know, a decade ago, for all I know.
Yeah.
So that's kind of, it'll be interesting to, as we start to strip it down, to see the differences between the fenders, or if you're British, wings. They call them wings. I learned that. So, and then, you know, as long as we're in here, I've done a bunch of cleaning in here, just because I was trying to brighten up my lights. They were really pitiful. And so I tried, you know, sandpaper and all of that, but I'm seriously considering doing a completely new wiring harness. You know, it's 50-year-old brass, it's just tarnished. And my understanding is that you can get some really good wiring harnesses from Wolfsburg West, and they're not crazy expensive.
That'd be interesting to have some subscribers let us know what their experience is, and you know, is it nice to keep the original and patch it up where it becomes brittle or cracked and polish things up and coat it with dielectric, or is it really worth the dollars to just start it all over? And then there's lots of kits out there. Which one would people recommend? So I'd love to hear people's thoughts on that.
You know, related to that, brakes were the big thing I was trying 2 summers ago to fix. I ended up finding, as I did a voltage testing, that I was dropping a huge amount of voltage from, and again, it's a
talking about brake lights.
Yeah, brake lights.
Yeah.
It's a huge amount of drop. It's a 6-volt system yet. And so I ended up taking just some trailer wiring, and running trailer wiring through the car to be able to put in a new brake
because the old wiring was dropping too many volts.
Exactly. And I have no idea where or why. And maybe that's just kind of what happens, is as it gets old, you get little connections. And again, with only 6 volts, you drop a small percentage, and now suddenly you really are not getting the brake lights that you want. So that's something I definitely want to fix. I almost got hit a couple of weekends ago. I've been driving it a lot, knowing that I won't drive it for a while. And I had some people who gave me thumbs up. They were all excited about the car, which was great. And then a stoplight later, they almost rear-ended me because they were talking and not paying attention. And my lights just are low, and they aren't very bright.
Yeah.
For a daylight, especially.
Sometimes cars resemble their owners or drivers. So.
Hey.
All right. So that gives us a grasp on the front end of the car. You do like the color paint, so
oh my goodness, yes.
Primarily it's going to go back to this color.
I get more comments about the color, people asking about the color. And you know, on one hand it's just blue, but it's a really unique blue. I've never, I haven't seen any cars that are, it's got this like bluish green to it. Anyway.
So what else about the car? Tell me, what are we going to work on?
Yeah, so another issue, and I have no idea if this is just the way it is. I'd love if there's a subscriber who has a convertible that's in this era. The way the top goes in, I have to, when I throw the top up, I am trying to finagle the pin that goes in here. And I'm often pushing the whole business back and forth. And I don't know if that's an issue with the top, or if that's an issue with the whole car is kind of doing this because it's a convertible. Do we need to stiffen this up and bring that windshield out a little bit?
Is it always the same off, or is it?
Yeah, great question. What I have noticed is if I don't put the top up, so I come in from driving it, maybe I went to a sunset out on the beach or whatever, and then I just drive in and I don't touch it for a couple of days, so it sits with the top down for a few days. It feels like it's worse. So it's almost like it needs the top up for the support, which to me says there's issues in the floor And I know there's nothing horrible in the floor. It's not like the rocker panels are completely rusted out.
Yeah.
But maybe there's stuff that we could do that would get that all so it really does stay, and now you've put in the top and the pins just drop right into the correct spots.
Yeah.
And for all I know, there also need adjustment. Maybe that's the problem, is the latches on the top aren't in the right spots.
Yeah. So I would love to hear from any viewers. What's your experience? Can it be fine-tuned? Are they always that way? And I'm curious, once we tear this down, to get a good look at the rockers and floor pan and heater channels, and we'll see whether everything looks pristine or whether welding's in our future.
So the doors, you can see that what I had down here, and now I can tear this off. I tried to put some like sound deadening. It's like some kind of roofing thing from Lowe's that I've seen suggested online, but I think it just got hot and then melted. Came off. It didn't stick, but it's also, you look on there, and the original deadening material, I think that's probably what that rough is.
Yeah.
It just didn't stick to it. And you can see, I'm pretty sure that at one time, I think this car was originally a yellow, and then there's yellow, there's red, and there's white, and there's blue. So I think
so patriotic.
It's been 4 different colors. Here's the red, of course. So just,
and you're going back to bright cherry red, right?
No.
No. Okay.
Too cliche for me. No offense if you have a red convertible.
Oh yeah,
It's
you just
sharp.
alienated 20% of our viewers.
It is sharp, but so I took probably about 3-4 summers ago, I took this whole door, all the window glass and everything out. And the reason I did it, and if you've got a VW, you know this, it did not have the inner window scraper. So I bought this piece. It wasn't that expensive. I bought the inner window scraper, and I'm like, oh, this will be easy, which I think a lot of people think. And then I realized that in order to put this scraper in, you have to take the entire mechanism out of the car, put it in, and then re-put the window back. So it's a gigantic job.
And that's how we learn.
If you've done it a million times,
sure,
it's probably easy. But
if you're Chris Fallone.
Exactly. And so I'm like, well, now I know why it wasn't there, because that's kind of, the previous owner did a great job, but they wanted to drive the car.
Yeah.
And so things like that weren't done. But what I did is I cleaned up all of it and I greased it, and all of a sudden, boy, I had it. Yeah, the window just works so much better.
Nice.
So I'm looking forward to doing that to all the windows.
Yep.
Clean them all up, which will be
I
great.
can see fresh, clean grease in there.
And it, I mean, it was, again, if you've worked on cars, you know, like 50-year-old or even 10, 20-year-old grease, it's like putty. And I couldn't believe how much nicer it was.
How's the door hinges in terms of if I try to lift?
Yeah, I don't know.
That's pretty solid.
Which makes me wonder, because one of the major things is, if we look, and I've never tried to adjust anything.
The door's not rides up just a touch on that door latch, but not bad.
But you can see from the line, you know, it's not
the door
the same.
is low.
And so the whole thing drops. So I'd love to get that figured out. And of course it sits out.
It's a little proud down here.
And I don't know, you know,
but
is
it doesn't,
the door torqued? I don't know.
It doesn't ride up as it latches though. So that's a good sign. It's not like the whole thing is sagging and the latch is what's lifting it back up. All right, let's keep going. What else?
All right, so then, oh, this window is a bit of a, so these windows, I don't, without having the window cranks in there, it's not worth pulling it all out, but I'll just leave that. So this window comes up like, you know, like that. So, and there's some kind of pin that's supposed to be here that isn't there. So as this goes up, it like, you have to kind of keep jamming it into the right spot. So there's parts that are missing on this window. So that needs fixing. If you know Volkswagens, you can film from that side yet. Underneath the seat here is where the battery is, and like so many of them, it's not rusted where the battery's going to fall out, but it's definitely rusted and needs repair. So I know that section is you know, you can buy a
new battery tray.
New battery tray.
Yep.
I know that this side, this passenger, I guess it's the driver's side, the whole driver's side floor pan was replaced, and this side's original, and then has a moderately rusted out battery tray. So
okay.
But I'm guessing that it was replaced with a floor pan that probably was less gauge than it was originally, and maybe we'll just cut out the old one and put in a better one that is maybe even more appropriate for a convertible. Yeah, we'll see.
We'll see. We got to figure that stuff out. Now you've done some engine work.
Yes, that was a huge part of this.
Oh,
past
look at
winter.
that.
Thank you, thank you. Snaps and claps, please, because that was a lot of work. All kinds of different pieces were, of course, dirty, but also they were. I didn't have parts. So now I've got all the seals and all of that kind of a deal, and then we spent time in this heat riser. Doug and I went through and we had to drill it out because it was so blocked up. So I feel like the engine's in some pretty good shape, which is great.
Yeah, that heat riser. Is that what that's called? The intake tube?
Yeah, you've got your intake manifold here, and then underneath it is the heat riser. So it was
blocked totally.
Yep, and so that helps the whole thing just run the way it's supposed to. And now I bought a few new tins. Some of these tins are unique to a 66 because this is a 1 year only engine, the 1300, which is really a 1285. I thought it was funny the other day I drove onto the expressway and it announced that motorcycles with less than 1280 cc's were not allowed on the highway, and it's almost the size of this engine. It's it's got a few different things. So for Volkswagen folks, I do know a few things. I found out that this is an 034, I think. Anyway, it's a different distributor and distributor cap than would have come with it, but in talking to the folks at Wolfsburg West to get a new cap and on it, they were saying that actually that's a desirable distributor and totally works with my carburetor, and it runs like a top now. I feel like, although I think my choke might have some issues, because it runs great when it's warmed up, but when you first start it, it struggles a little. And talking to somebody, they're like, I bet you your choke isn't actually doing what it's supposed to.
All right.
Anyway.
It does look like you have the engine seal here, which is good.
And that's another sign that the rear clip was replaced, perhaps not in exactly the right spot, because this engine seal, I want to get the engine out and replace it. It's chewed up, it's been cut so that it'll fit. So I feel like this engine bay is not really in the right contour, and that also, if we shut the hood, that is not the gap that's supposed to happen. The whole engine lid has been dropped as far as it can possibly be dropped, and there's actually some washers in there as well, and I think it's all to make sure that this latch is able to latch on to this guy, which is as far down as he can, or far up as he can be. So I think this piece is just too far down. So I think both the front and the rear are too far, and same kind of problems with the bumper.
Got it.
Which is probably what really got me noticing how much body problems there were, is when I started digging into the bumpers and looking at them.
Typical stress cracks too. We can weld those and fix those.
And I'm looking forward, the Merriman Beetle has a deck lid, and it has the rain tray, which I'm curious. Here's another thing for viewers that know something. I don't have the rain catch, so if you drive it in the rain, of course, rain's going to get right through these vents. And the convertibles, what they had, and we can see it on the Merriman, they had a whole tray that went here, and it funneled the rainwater down through these tube on these clips, and then it's supposed to come out the bottom.
Okay.
And that's been taken out, and probably along the lines of, you know, I'm not going to drive it's a nice weather car, I'm not going to drive it in the rain,
Yeah.
and that'll help increase airflow. But I kind of think I want that, in part because one of my ideas is to get a third light. Again, the lights are so low compared to today's cars.
Yeah.
I would love to have that rain catch in there, and then put in some lights that are inside
Behind it.
so when you hit the brakes, you would be able to see it through the vents.
Yeah.
And that would be a dramatic third light, because a lot of people will put a third light on their window, but of course with the top down, I don't
Sure.
have that.
You can get remote control smoke bombs to go off through the vents.
Seriously. Yeah, and then there's some other little pieces. You know, this looks all fine, but the actual housing here, these screws go into that housing, and the holes are stripped too far. So I just took hot glue, and I filled the hole with hot glue, so the screws go into hot glue, and that's what's holding them, which isn't necessarily the strongest.
Hot glue.
So hey, back
So
up. One of them's good.
maybe our goal
One
should
of
be
them's
to
good.
not
One of them-
use hot glue.
So, you know, we could improve that.
I love you, Dale.
Perhaps. It was a great solution.
It
for
was.
the
It
time.
worked. It worked. It
You know,
worked.
let's see. How many times have you driven that Mustang a year?
Oh, that's right.
You know, I put probably between 1,000.
All right, moving on.
1,000 and 1,500 miles on this car.
Anything else we should know?
I think. Yeah, I guess the other piece of it would be, you know, the heating system is always, people talk about bugs that they you know, oh, they don't have heat. That's not true. It's just that it's very easy for the heat to leak out if it's not a complete system. So the heat's supposed to be going through these parts here and come out foot panels, go up, and then come out of vents here, and a vent in the center. That's a 66 thing, where they put a vent in the center here. And right now I've got,
Works good for a sunglass holder.
right now there's no tubes that go to the center, so all I get is cold air that's coming in from the hood that doesn't fit. And this side actually gets some decent air, but the other side doesn't. So maybe I'm missing tubes, maybe they're blocked. Again,
Hey, if we got it all apart,
summer,
that's the
but
time.
I'd love, you know, if I had heat, that would just allow a more pleasant, you know, fall and spring.
Yeah.
I want to drive it as much as I can.
Sure.
And
Yep.
and so that's another piece that I'd love to get figured out
My
while we have it torn apart.
My 72 had rusted out heater with J tubes in the back.
Okay.
I drove it for 2 winters that way.
Yeah.
I had a scraper for the inside of the
I had
windshield.
my
That was
72. I had a
was
scraper
bad.
for the inside.
yeah.
Absolutely.
So guest appearance. This is my brother Ron. He didn't know I was going to put the camera on him. Ron is the owner of the 79 triple black. What do you call it again, Ron? The triple black.
Triple black epilogue.
Epilogue. So this is his 79 that he bought and refinished as well, and it's a beautiful car. So good. Any other thoughts, Dale, before we wrap up?
Last year, the Super Beetle in the
Yes.
United States.
Last year, black exterior, black interior, black top. So it was the triple black. One per dealer. So all right, time to throw Hendrick in the shop, and we're gonna start disassembling.